So welcome once again to our second episode of Purpose, Profit in Africa. I'm so excited to see you once again. So my name is Anne Wagaki, and once again, let's build Africa and build African businesses that actually matter. So in this episode, we're talking about systems and structures. We're talking about the fact that Africa does not need more businesses. It needs businesses that are built to last. Now, there's a statistic that should worry each one of us. Now, 85% of our businesses are dying off with the initial founder. I might want to pause for a minute for that to sink in. Imagine 85% of our businesses dying off with the initial founder. That means they never get to see the next generation or the second generation. They never get to transition. As soon as anything happens to the founder, then the business also dies off. Now that is very worrying. Now every day I talk to founders and entrepreneurs and business owners in the African region. Every single day. I meet at least 2 or more founders every day. Now, one thing that is for sure is that building a business in the African market is a difficult task in itself. It's not a walk in the park. And I must applaud all the African founders out there. I must give you your flowers because building in Africa is a tough journey. But then what has happened over time is that after all these years of building, and I would want to just paint it to us and just allow us see how building looks like in Africa. First, it looks like really struggling and real struggle in the initial 3 to 5 years. Any founder who has built a business or any entrepreneur will agree to this fact, that in the initial 3 to 5 years, sometimes it feels like you want to quit every single morning because it is very tough. You wake up in the morning and you remember that bills are waiting for you. Oh, sorry, you didn't even sleep in the first place. So we might not even talk about waking up, yeah? So bills are waiting for you. You have teams to build. Your team member just resigned. Your client just called to say that they do not have your fees and they can only pay after another 3 months or so. You have taxes that you need to resolve, the arrays in your region, whether it's Kenya, it's KRA, if it's Uganda, URA, etc. So whichever it is, you have taxes that you ought to pay. You have bills. Business is not showing up. Clients are not paying. Money is not getting into the bank. That's how it looks like. And every day you have to keep on because for some of these founders, you probably left your 9-to-5 job to open a business. Others, it was born out of passion or purpose. We spoke about purpose in the first episode. So some of them were born out of purpose or passion or, all these ambitions. But now what looked like, a very interesting concept is not producing the results you are looking for. So in the initial years, it is tough to build a business. In fact, research has shown that over 40% of businesses die off within the first 3 years. So you could imagine if that's a global research, then in Africa, the percentage is higher because, as I said, the African market is very different compared to other markets. So having done all these things in building, then after another 10 years, you're now in the maturity stage. If the business is beginning to mature, it's beginning to develop, you're probably breaking even now, maybe not too profitable, but breaking even, yeah. In fact, I was having a conversation just the other day with some VCs who've been entering the African markets, that's venture capitalists, and a few PEs, the private equities. And they asked me, from your experience, Anne, why do you think VCs are getting it hard or tough in Africa? And one of the reasons is because the African market is very different. Now, the way VCs structured, especially in the West, is that they step into a business, and within the first 3 years, 5 years, they're able to make their profits and their returns, and they can easily exit the business and move forward. Now, in Africa, it takes close to 5 to 10 years for business to even mature before we even talk about profitability. So here, the dynamics are very different. I just want to give us a picture of how building in Africa looks like. So it becomes very difficult for these VCs because the model they use in the West is not working too well in the African market. Because here again, people build businesses for different reasons. And one of them is even survival. Founders just want to survive. They want their families to eat and live. And that is very different from why people build businesses in the West or other regions. So all these reasons combined then make it very different for an African founder or an African business. And so that's how building looks like, building a business. And you have to continuously, compete with bigger players, and you're looking at what you're getting, you're just surviving, you're just living from hand to mouth. Sometimes one of the founders recently told me that, and I cannot even get 1,000 shillings from my business. It's now 2 years. But they've just been, whatever they make pays certain bills, pays employees, pays your rent fees, your office rent, pays your taxes, it pays all these things that they keep building. Now, one of the things about African founders is that they're resilient. And again, you have to give it to them. Founders here and entrepreneurs, they are very resilient because in the face of all these challenges, I find businesses that have developed for 30, 40 years, and they went through the same phases and sometimes even tougher, because a business that's now 30 or 40, it was probably tougher for them in their early years, which is way back. Now, at least we're in the age of AI and, collaborations, partnerships. The world has become a global village through social media. When they were building, we didn't even have social media. Today, I receive a lot of clients from social media, etc. In their days, they didn't have the luxury of social media connections. So it was tougher for them. That these people have kept on, because African founders and leaders are very resilient, which is a big plus for us. And so this founder builds up and keeps on, builds networks, because again, here in Africa, it is so much about who knows you and what you're able to do, and whether the other person or the other founder or business leader believes that you're delivering value. Because if they do, what we've seen over time is that you're likely to meet almost another 5 or more entrepreneurs or business leaders through that one connection that you made. And so in Africa, business is a game of networking or collaboration. And so having built your business over the years, brick by brick, step by step, stone by stone, with all the resilience, with all the sleepless nights, and whatever else that comes along the way, then years later, once your energy begins to go down, because those years really come for sure, and you no longer had the energy like you did years back. So you'd want to transition this business to the next level. You'd want people to take it over. You'd want probably your children to take up the business. Unfortunately, for some of the reasons we're about to discuss, that business just dies off. Imagine after the years of building and the energy we've put in and everything that we've discussed. Ideally, it should be that the initial founder builds a business to a certain level, let's say to this level, and the next generation takes it up and builds up from that position to the next level. Unfortunately, children in the African markets are in the business of building because what was built by their fathers probably did not see the second generation. And so after it died, the second generation has to begin building afresh. Then unfortunately that again dies off and the third generation have to come in and build their own business. So we're in the business of building. Every generation is just building. And that's why we do not have sustainability and long-term, businesses in the African market. And our economy is still struggling because of some of those reasons, because businesses that are still at the building stage make up the biggest part of our economy. And those businesses, most of them are not profitable. Because as we said, we need close to 10 years for a business to break even, be profitable and mature properly in this market. So if we're just in the business of building and rebuilding and building again, then we have young businesses at almost every stage of our business lives. And that has to change. That's why we're having this conversation. And so what really happens when it comes to transition? Now, there's so many reasons, and I interact with business leaders and founders every single day. And there's so many things and factors that really lead to lack of transition or this short-termness in our businesses. Now, one of the things that I see a lot is what I call founders syndrome. Now, what that looks like is that most of us as founders believe that everything rises and falls on us. Where we feel like this business cannot run unless I'm there. This client cannot be served unless I'm there. Now, one of the things I decided when I started off my consulting company is that I am not running a one-man show. That is something I decided I'll not do. So I began building people in the first month. In fact, very interesting that I employed the first employee even without a client because I knew marketing. And so I knew clients will come and I needed to start preparing my team for that time. And over time, I have been building a team because what I have seen founders do over time is literally kill themselves in the operational work, in the day-to-day operations, in so much work, and bury themselves in that work so that they have no time to even think strategically. And we have no time to even build other leaders around us and allow them become. We have no time to even think about succession because for us, it's about survival. It's about today. How can we make money to pay our children's fees, to pay our bills, to survive? But then really that is what I call the short-term mentality, which is something that has to change. Because for us to build this generation of businesses, then we have to think differently. And so apart from the founder syndrome, and the truth is for sure, someone else can do what you're doing. Maybe not as good as you do it, but they can definitely do what you do. That's for sure. If you train them, if you work with them, if you mentor them, if you coach them, if you review what they do and retrain, they will become with time. That's a truth that we must swallow as founders because those businesses are bigger than you. If you want to build a business around yourself, then we're missing the mark. Because going back to our first episode on purpose, the why that business exists, that why is bigger than one person. It's bigger than one founder. It's a hard truth to swallow in, but really, you're the vision bearer, but then the business should not be held hostage by you as an individual. And so it's really seeing how to get aligned people and carry them along and train them and mentor them. Now, some of the most successful businesses I have seen over time, and I'm now going to my next factor or next point, are businesses where founders began working with the next generation early enough. Now, sometimes we want to wait until it's too late to begin preparing the next generation of leaders. And the truth is, true success will be found if we begin preparing this next generation early enough. Start training them. Start working with them. Now, one of the businesses I work for, now in the third generation, and I'm so proud of them. So they keep telling me, the third generation keeps telling me how their grandmother and their grandfather would carry them to the business as young as 5 years, 6 years. And every time they are on holiday, the grandmother and grandfather would ensure that they've carried to see what is happening in the businesses. Let them go there and see other employees work with, the books, the systems, the machines, whatever is happening in the business. And I'm telling you, the energy and enthusiasm that I see in this third generation is something else. But it's because a seed was planted early enough. Now that applies to also other leaders, because certain founders might not have children to take over, but they could be developing other leaders. Now begin developing them early enough. Let them see the journey. Let them be part of it. Carry them to those client meetings. Whatever you're doing, let them be part of it as early as possible, so that you begin aligning them. You begin allowing them understand why this business exists and what matters to you as the founder and the business the most. So early preparation of these successes is very critical. Now remember, I really delved into this during my MBA thesis, because actually my MBA is around this area. It's very close to my heart. And that was one of the factors that I really looked into. That at what point do we begin talking about succession? Or do we begin preparing the next generation of leaders? Most times we do it very late. When the founder no longer has the energy, or they feel like they're about to exit the business, that's when we want to start preparing these people. But remember, at that point, you also do not have the energy as a founder. And you need energy to train, to retrain these people until they are grounded in what really matters for your business. So apart from the early succession or early preparation of these successors, other factors would be structures and systems, which is part of our discussion today. Now, most founders, again, run everything from their heads, where we know how to talk to certain suppliers, we know when to say what, we know when the supplier comes, we know when to pay. We are the only ones who know what happens at every stage of our business. Now that is holding your business hostage. Because if we're talking about everything revolving around you, then it's too dangerous for that business. Because it means you cannot take any break, you cannot take any leave. If you do, that business dies. And if anything happens to you, then it dies completely, unfortunately. And so it's to then see how to build systems that will ensure that this business continues, whether you're there or you're not. Try and take a 2 months leave from your business, and let's see whether you would still be making money, whether clients will still trust the brands and the people that you deal with. then that's a proper test. If the answer is no, or if we cannot even attempt to do that, then we have some work to do. Let's build systems. And systems would be both the tech systems, but also the processes, the procedures. Let's document what matters to us. I see some businesses that have no documentation at all. People do not know what happens at any stage of the business. As I said, everything is run from the founder's head. So can we normalize documentation processes from what we call core and support processes so that we have clarity and even consistency? Again, there are businesses where today we do this, tomorrow we do something else because of lack of consistency. And that is brought about by lack of processes and structures. So can we normalize having documentation? If we're talking about how we recruit people in our business, let it be clear. How are people recruited? How are people onboarded? What is our culture really? What are our values? Let those things be documented so that it's clear for anyone who's joining the company or the firm. Then also, how do we get our finances clear? Again, for some businesses, they have no financial records at all. Sometimes when I'm developing strategic plans for businesses, I ask for their financials and I'm taken round and round in circles. For a business that has been in operation for over 10 years or more, let's have a way of putting our financial records clear. And we know whether we are profitable or not, even as a business owner. So those are some of the systems that you need to put in place. Then also begin delegation early. It's part of putting the systems in place. Release some of the activities to people. Allow people become. That's also part of building leadership in your organization. And you're able to test whether these people can do it or cannot. Do they need training? Do they need more mentorship? Whatever is needed for them. Now, most times when I talk to founders, they keep telling me, and some of our children are not interested in our businesses. And sometimes those who are interested might not be competent enough to take over our businesses. But it's a very interesting point because one of the things I keep looking at is the fact that founders have not made these businesses attractive enough for their children or even for other leaders to take them up to the next level. So most of these children are not really rejecting the businesses. They're rejecting the experience that comes with the business. They've seen you struggle over time. They've seen how chaotic it has been for you over time. And some of them do not want to get into those chaos. So it's for us as first generation founders to make these businesses so attractive so that as you sell the idea or the vision to your children or the next generation, then it will be an easy sell. Sometimes it's such a difficult sell to them because if your children are to take over your business today, will they be taking over confusion or clarity? Will they be taking over a vision or a burden? So those are some of the questions we have to answer as founders. Because sometimes all we are selling to them is confusion. There are no systems, there are no structures, there is no governance. There is nothing in place. And they know how difficult it has been for you. Remember, we're talking about millennials and Generation Z. Most of them are very learned. And so they already know clarity when they see clarity. They know a clear vision when they see one. And most of them would also know purpose when they see it. So again, when they see confusion, they know confusion. So really, your children are not rejecting the business. They're rejecting the experience that comes with your business. So make it attractive for them by building systems and structures and governance and thinking through succession early enough. Because the truth is, will not be here forever. This is a discussion we do not want to have. But that's the truth. But this business is meant to last for generations, because you did not build an entire vision over the years for it to collapse as soon as you exit the stage. So this is an invite to all of us to build businesses that are founded on purpose, but also businesses that are built to last. Because that is what Africa needs. Now, if you're yet to subscribe, this is your opportunity to do that. Because what is coming is bigger and is powerful. Now, in the next episode, we'll be looking at what it means to lead in the African market. What does leadership look like in the African market? So see you there.